This is Jeremy Martin, Vice President for Energy and Sustainability at the Institute of the Americas, and welcome to the 34th Annual La Jolla Energy Conference Curtain Raiser with Derek Chubb, a partner at Environmental Resources Management, better known as ERM. Derek, how are you?
I'm great, Jeremy. Good to see you.
Thank you for joining us for our curtain raiser, and we've been doing this several years with ERM before the La Jolla Energy Conference, which, by the way, is set for October 21st through 23rd this year. And in this curtain raiser, we're going to dive into the issues around mining, minerals, and industrialization, which is one of our featured panels. And we're very pleased to have Derek with us. He's a senior partner at ERM with over 35 years of experience in the industry. He's worked with several companies in different commodity sectors and geographies, principally around HSEC, health, safety, environment, and community risk and opportunity profile through the life cycle of mining. He's moved down to Argentina not too long ago, so he's based in Argentina now and is in charge of ERM's mining business in South America and Mexico. So I know that was a big move. You were in Canada, right?
I was certainly in Canada. That's exactly right, Jeremy. And I moved down to Argentina about November of last year.
Exciting. I mean, there was a lot of news out of New York last week regards to macroeconomics in Argentina. And so, well, we're not going to get into that today. This is about mining and minerals. But like I mentioned, we're very pleased and thanks to everyone at ERM for your continued support. And as I said, we're going to get into an issue that we think is not just important for our agenda, and we'll have a panel discussion, but we want to, as we do with these curtain raisers, explore it in a little bit more depth and get a subject matter expert to do that. And I think in a way of background, and again, from the Institute and the energy program, we come into the critical minerals and the mining space from that side, from the energy space, working backwards. But I think it's something that we've all become a little more cognizant of, the role and importance of mining and minerals in our economies broadly, particularly in the energy sector as we deploy at much greater scale solar, wind, batteries, battery energy storage solutions, EVs, and we continue to expand our power grids as we electrify a lot more of our energy sector needs. But beyond energy, you have aerospace, you have defense, electronics. I mean, there's a whole range of economic inputs and segments that rely on the same critical minerals and share interconnected supply chains. And we'll get into this in a minute, but I just wanted to flag, and we're starting to work here at the Institute of the Americas with our new diplomatic fellow on issues around particularly 5 or 6 critical minerals: copper, lithium, nickel, cobalt, graphite, maybe, and rare earths. And the point is that they're becoming, in terms of their supply and chains, less and less diversified. And there was a big IEA study a few years ago that highlighted this. I think it was 4 years ago, and the point is it's from that point 4 years ago, it's only become even more pronounced, where something like 85-90% of the market share is controlled by 3 producers for many of these inputs and minerals, right? But what we want to talk about today is the good news, which is Latin America's abundance and Latin America's bountiful abundance of minerals and mines and mineral inputs. And so we think that the IEA call to action is important, but it also underscores the opportunity not only for the mining and mineral side of it, which is a legacy in Latin America, but the value chain, move up the value chain and to get more and more out of the minerals and the products associated with them. And I've heard not too long ago a word, beneficiation, which I like. It's a new way of saying value added, which is the age-old challenge in Latin America to really not just export a commodity, but get some more value, move up the value chain. I alluded to sort of the market. So Derek, why don't we start there and help us set the scene for this conversation? And it seems that no matter the path or pace of the energy transition, we are going to continue to need minerals, and demand seems to be on a pace to outstrip supply, regardless of, like I say, the pace and path of energy transition. Give us at the beginning a little bit of a demand side outlook, and then we can get a little more into some of the other issues.
Yeah, certainly, Jeremy. And just to start, congratulations on the upcoming conference, 34th conference, I believe it is. Is that correct?
34th, yeah. I've been here for most of them.
That's awesome. And it really does look like an exciting agenda to connect, explore, and debate some of these key issues. So it's a pleasure to be here today with this curtain raiser, and I certainly look forward to the conversation. So again, congratulations on the upcoming conference. The demand side of things, yes, there is a demand that is out there for critical minerals, and there are three real dominant factors that are out there driving this demand. It is energy security and the transition of our economy. It is defense, and it is technology. It is all of these things. And these demands as well are being amplified at regional levels because of the geopolitical environment in which we find ourselves today. And what that is really doing is it is driving competition in a really constrained supply chain. But if I'd like to put perhaps this demand side into some context. If we look at the International Energy Agency, there estimates that are out there is that over the next decade, we're going to need to spend $800 billion of investment.
Wow.
$800 billion of investment by 2040 if we are to achieve or reach net zero by 2050. NATO has published a list of critical minerals that are at high risk of becoming a bottleneck for production of defense equipment. And the world's largest mining company has projected a 6-fold increase in copper alone to fuel data centers by 2050. These are phenomenal numbers. These are large numbers that, as you said at the intro here, despite the pace, the current supply of these minerals is being outpaced. However, at the same time as this is happening, the capital investments into mining development, it just does not match that need. If we were to adjust for inflation, 2024 was a meager growth of 2% of the capital growth into investment in mining. So those numbers are obviously at contrast to each other, and this is going to need to change. So some of the things that we look at, and some of the things that I look at here in the environment that I'm working on, is, well, what are some of the factors that are contributing to this reality? The reality is that the pipeline of mining assets, it's becoming more difficult to find the assets that are accessible, that are in mining established jurisdictions. And what we've seen is that we've seen budgets for exploration fall. Despite this long-term trend, this demand that we are seeing, that we are anticipating to continue to occur, the critical mineral prices have been volatile. Let's take a look at lithium, for example, that is 80% cheaper now than it was in 2023. Those types of things have an impact on the ability to move mines forward. One of the other things to look at here is this is a highly capital intensive industry with a long lead time. And in fact, the lead time to bringing mines productions is getting longer. It's not getting shorter. Today, it's taking about 18 years to bring a new mine into production. That's how long it takes from the point of discovery into the point of operation, 18 years. And what are we seeing? Well, we're seeing increased scrutiny from regulators, from communities, from the public. And this all has a knock-on effect on the markets and the willingness to invest in this market. And finally, we've got a reputation in mining, a legacy that stays with us, right? The reality is that our industry has a legacy of suboptimal practices that still endure today, despite the fact that this industry has come an awful long way and is a key contributor to today's society. ERM just finished publishing, in fact, it was last week, Jeremy, a new paper called Mission Critical: Building Resilient Mines for a Modern Society. And some of this research participants will be able to see it in there. So I would encourage people to go to the ERM website where they can download a copy of this paper that speaks to some of these pieces that are underpinned by the demand side trends that you're asking me about here.
You know, you've put so much information out on the table to come back and talk about, and so thank you. I mean, the 800 billion, of course, jumps out, and then the fact that there's only, I think you said 2% of growth in terms of capex or investment, and then the timelines. I mean, all of these things point to demand continuing to outstrip supply, right? But let's dial in a little bit on Latin America and see if we can sort of align some of these things that you said are difficult to align or a bit out of alignment right now in terms of demand and requirements. And I'm particularly interested, from the region and differentiating across countries and geographies. And you mentioned some of the legacy. Some countries have more legacy than others, and that's something I'd like you to comment on. But what's happening in terms of models, in terms of investment profiles, and what I'm referring to also on this is to get into some of these things you just alluded to, not just of digging the minerals, but the value added and that beneficiation I mentioned before.
Yeah. Thanks, Jeremy. I think we're well beyond just digging minerals. We can't just dig minerals anymore. It's not the way that we're going to be successful, for sure. But yes, let's talk about Latin America, where I'm sitting here today for the moment. So, listen, Latin America is one of the world's geographies that's blessed with strong mineral potential. That is the reality. And in recent years, South America has been a tremendous focus of attention to the global mining industry, particularly the Andean region that includes Chile and Peru and Argentina. Yeah. Any given day, there is media attention on LATAM and the mineral industry. Every week there seems to be some sort of announcement about a major mining company making a move in Latin America. So it's certainly interesting times, to say the least, in Latin America. There are cross-cutting risks and opportunities in the industry, but the reality is that every part of the region is different. It has its own legacy issues. It has its own current realities. So let's take a look at that for just a moment. I was in Peru last week. There's a large mining conference called Peromín. It was a great opportunity to meet with people, talk to our clients, get a feel for what's happening in Peru with my colleagues at ERM. Peru is one of those established mining jurisdictions. It's a global supplier of copper already. But at the same time, some of the challenges that a jurisdiction like Peru is seeing is the emergence of illegal mining activities that are constraining this supply chain and providing some uncertainty into development challenges within the region. We move over to Chile. Chile is the world's largest copper supplier in the world, and it's an established jurisdiction which really focused a lot on brownfield developments with substantial lithium potential in the region. However, in that jurisdiction, there are certainly some regulatory uncertainty that has the potential to impact investment. Argentina is probably the one that's been in the news the most recently in terms of an attractive option for development. Unlike those other two jurisdictions in the Andean, Argentina also has a substantial lithium and copper, but it's new to the market. It's relatively new to the market, and given the demand side issues. Argentina is a regime that is really looking to create conditions to support large investment. In fact, they've instituted a program called RIGI, which is the large investment incentive regime, and it's specifically to target foreign investment by providing tax conditions, custom conditions, currency benefits that really are looking at reducing increasing fiscal certainty and lowering the cost of development. And this has provided a tremendous amount of interest from the world's mining community. All of the global major mining companies are here. And we can't forget that it's not just about the Andean and critical minerals in the Andean. All across South America, Brazil is another jurisdiction that holds lots of untapped potential, a major mining player, and there's a particular attention, for example, on rare earths that is happening in Brazil. And so these are all jurisdictions that ERM is quite active in, and we really certainly are keeping a close eye on these areas as mining powerhouses. If we take a look at LATAM and globally and LATAM, there certainly is an increased focus on the life cycle of mining and its role in the broader ecosystem. As you said, it's not just about digging minerals anymore. This is about generating benefits at the local community level. It's around meeting global expectations of the end customers of these minerals as sustainable providers. It's so much more than just extracting minerals from the ground. In fact, any organization that is looking at only that part of the equation is going to have a really tough, difficult time being successful. And I guess that's where, just to close that out at ERM, we're growing our business here in South America alongside of our clients in the critical mineral space because of this demand, because of the need to work differently in mining. I'm sitting here today in Argentina because of this demand,
right,
and because of the need for responsible development of critical minerals, and quite frankly, the potential that this region holds.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I forget who I was speaking with, but it wasn't that long ago, and we're having a similar conversation about the outlook and opportunity, and they said, and I don't, this is a quote of what I recall, but they said only 20% of Argentina's mining opportunities have been explored. In other words, that there's an immense amount of exploration. You mentioned how Argentina's become now a spotlight. So that's interesting. Before we move on to a different subject, let me, actually, something for myself, but hopefully some of the listeners and viewers, rare earths. We hear that term, and it doesn't help explain rare earths as much as you can to a layman.
Well, listen,
and without taking 30 minutes in a chemistry lesson,
how about if I take around 10 seconds and
there you go.
we'll try it. We'll try it that way. We hear all about the big minerals, right? We hear about copper, we hear about lithium, but there is a huge suite of other minerals that are required to support everything that you introduced us with, right? There are different minerals that are required to support our economy, and there's a large bucket of those that we are calling rare earths, and that's about as simple as I can make that for you.
So I like that. It's a suite of minerals, many of which most people cannot pronounce, especially myself. Medium and got it. And I think it's important to highlight that Brazil, in some cases of these particular, has a lot of them, right?
That's absolutely correct. Yes, they do. Yeah, and there's increased interest all of the time.
Perfect. Yeah, I don't want to throw you. Bolivia is going through an electoral process, and Bolivia has been, in terms of lithium, a bit of a political hot potato, if you will, or a regulatory investment model hot potato. But maybe in this next question, you can come back and incorporate any thoughts on Bolivia. But I did want to get more into some of these investment in, the sort of lens of business impacts. Because you did allude to a lot of that in some of the opening comments you made. And I know you and ERM, part of what you're doing is looking at the business impacts and de-risking capital. So talk a little bit about the key enablers and then come back to some of the sustainability challenges around mining in general, but of course, in Latin America in particular. And I don't know if you can weave Bolivia into that answer as well.
Yeah. I mean, certainly, I don't think we need to get into the different geopolitics across the entire region. But what we can say, of course, is that geopolitics plays a key role, in mining, certainly, as well as many other things. But through the lens of business impacts and de-risking capital, you put that very well. It is a lot about de-risking the large capital that it takes to bring mining forward. And in order to de-risk that capital, what mining really must do is to demonstrate value in an ecosystem of interested parties. If there isn't value for the different parties that are involved, and everybody's seeing value, then it becomes very, very difficult. So there needs to be demonstrated value to shareholders, to governments, to communities, to right holders, to many, many different interested different parties. And some of these things, like if I look specifically in LAC, and again, some of these cross-cutting issues, they exist everywhere else in the world, but there are some uniqueness to given any geography. But in LATAM, in the Andean, for example, water, biodiversity, and the intersection of these key issues with people are often at the center of the challenges of mining development. And these challenges aren't only technical challenges, they're social challenges, and they are political challenges as well. And so it's working through these types of things in a way that you can demonstrate value is the way in which companies can move forward. So what are those enablers? Well, at the broadest of sense, there are really 4 key enablers, right? The enablers to mining development are around having a regulatory license to operate. That's what we used to really focus in on, but it's not that
social
simple.
license to operate. Yeah,
we need a social license to operate. Well, we also need an environmental license to operate. We talked about some of the legacy pieces, right? There's an increased focus on really demonstrate, your ability to perform. And then there's a financial license to operate. An awful lot of work that we are doing is being able to align jurisdictions with international best practice and to de-risk projects in a way in which the financiers will show up. And so this is a key piece. So at a simplest thing, there's those 4 things. So a regulatory license, a social license, an environmental license, and a financial license. Sounds easier than done, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go.
So I talked earlier about the paper that ERM just released that I've encouraged the listeners to take a look at, and within that there's what we call our resilient mining framework that is intended to support these enablers by identifying some of the things that will unlock potential. And I'll just very quickly highlight these without going into any depth. This is around very early on in the process of mining, is identifying the key risks and the opportunities that are specific to the deposit, specific to the developments that you're looking at, to make sure that the information that's necessary is collected timely and it's timed with the critical path of these projects. So it's really around having the knowledge base to be able to address these key questions and key challenges and opportunities that come with projects. It's around having leadership, engagement, and trust, building the relationships at various levels to obtain these various licenses. It's no longer a world in which a mining company does it all by themselves. This has to be done collaboratively. It needs to be co-designed for positive impact. So this is about generating value, understanding what values are held by others. And in order to do that, to be very transparent and to be able to adapt to what the needs of others are as well. And we certainly couldn't in today to go by without mentioning the fact that the world's moving fast. The use of AI and the use of technology is a key element of moving mining forward as well. So as I said, there's six things and a lot of details behind those as to what we view as important and ways in which to underpin these enablers.
Would you, as a parenthesis, so you mentioned earlier RIGI, which is the sort of regime or parameters for large-scale infrastructure investment in Argentina. Now, that's a particular case managing Argentine country risk, but perhaps that's something that could be an interesting lesson learned for other countries that may or may not have the same risk profile, but nevertheless, it's a vehicle for trying to de-risk and encourage that kind of large-scale investment that's needed, as you alluded to.
Yeah, absolutely. The RIGI program in Argentina has really been a catalyst, and it really has, if anything, been effective of generating interest and generating applications. I can't remember off the top of my head the number of billions of dollars that have applications that have gone through recently, and the number of dollars that have been committed to this. I guess what I would say there, though, is that it is a regime established specifically for the Argentine market and and addressing some of the key challenges that were in front of the investment community and large corporations of coming to Argentina. Those same issues don't exist everywhere. So, the encouragement there is to be looking different jurisdiction, what is needed in any given jurisdiction to unlock this potential further. Sometimes it's anything from supporting the exploration community in the knowledge bases to the mineral potential of the region. Others, it may be taxes. Others, it may be partnering opportunities. There are a whole bunch of things, and they are happening across not just Latin America, happening across the world. Because as I said at the beginning, with that demand side, with some of those factors that are driving the competition, countries are in competition with one another to be able to move minerals faster.
Yeah, we've seen news in the U.S. about how to leverage maybe more for domestic, but the government actually perhaps taking equity stake, directing some financial model or some financial options that come out of the Department of Energy, et cetera. So I do think people are starting to think outside the box in terms of how to, like you said, meet that, whether it's 80 billion, 100 billion, enormous amounts of capital needed. We're running out of time, but yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
I was just going to interject and say, remember, the box is down bigger, right?
Yeah, exactly. Thinking outside a much larger box. Fair enough.
Exactly.
But speaking, and that's a perfect way to segue to something that, although we're sort of out of time, I absolutely wanted to end with, because you referenced it. And I think if we talk about the La Jolla Energy Conference agenda and we talk about sort of the key themes, energy transition is sort of still something people are trying to understand. Energy security, of course, the role of gas and LNG, mining and minerals, and of course, AI and data centers. So go back to something you already said, but expand upon it a little bit more, this intersection of mining, minerals, AI, data centers, and we'll wrap up there.
Excuse me, Jeremy. Yes, absolutely. I think I said it at the beginning in terms of the connection and the drive of AI and data centers on the amount of minerals that requires to be able to fuel that ever increasing demand. And I guess at the end of the day, what we're talking about here is this is a true supply chain issue, right? Again, it's not just providing minerals for purpose, but the whole way in which society is moving are changing demands and changing for how these demands are going to be supported from different regions across the world. So my final point would be, just to recap, the world needs more minerals than ever before. In order to supply that demand, value needs to be demonstrated. Bringing forward development is complex and time consuming. And that, the narrative on how this all continues to play out is still being written. And I would suggest that your conference, like others, is an excellent forum in which to continue to build the narrative for the industry going forward.
Oh, that's beautiful. And I would add this research project that my colleague Chris Nice, who arrived about a month ago, he's a Department of State secondee with a little bit of a minerals background, particularly in parts of Africa. And he's going to lead a research effort here that he'll actually moderate this panel at the La Jolla Energy Conference. And we're going to look more into that. So we'll come back to you. We'll look at Mission Critical, the paper you mentioned that was out last week by ERM. Thank you again, Derek, for your time. Thank you to ERM and everyone at the company for your ongoing support of the Institute of the Americas and the La Jolla Energy Conference. October 21st through 23rd, www.iamericas.org. You'll see the info there, La Jolla Energy Conference. So, well, thank you, Derek. Best of luck. I hope you're enjoying your new residency in Buenos Aires. And like you said, exciting times around the region and particularly in places like Argentina. So thanks again.
Thanks again. Thank you. Bye now.